Hello and welcome to Dancing Geek podcast. My name is James, also known as Dancing Geek online. I love getting messages, so please feel free to comment in any comments box below this video, or to get hold of me on Ravelry and Instagram as Dancing Geek, all one word, or any other way you can find me really. So I am playing sort of daylight chicken, as it were. It's like yarn chicken, but it's with the daylight. And Cara from Knit All the Things will understand this because we've both had daylight issues recently in our podcast. This is the trouble of being a night owl and then hitting daylight savings when the clocks go back and it suddenly gets dark at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and quite frankly I only barely function before 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So I have torn myself out of bed at the ungodly hour of, I'm not even going to tell you because you'll hate me, and I'm just jumping straight into doing the podcast. So it's a little bit underprepared, but I think that's me normally anyway. So I have some notes that aren't ordered, I have some stuff around me to show you, and just to make it even more complicated, I have some knitting. Because there was this whole thing about trying to knit on the podcast and I quite enjoyed it, so I'm going to try and do it again. So, of course the problem with this is that the second I pick it up I then realise, well actually if I'm going to show you something, I'll just do one stitch. There we go, I've done a stitch. I feel good now. Then I'm going to need my hands to do this. So, I can show you guys a finished object! This is the Bartley pattern! Yay! I am so excited for this. So this is, it's not really the back, it's the sides. It's just because of the shape of it folded flat that you can see that shaping that runs down the edge of the cables there, and then obviously the cabling round the neck, and then this great big bandit pouch, and then the tassels. Now I'm going to have a go, see if I can do this. No preparation at all, so I'm just making this up. But here we go. How awesome is that? You're not really getting the full effect because of where I am, but if I pull myself back a bit and sit up, there we go. So now you can kind of see, you can't see my face, but you know, who's complaining? But you can see this awesome, awesome cowl. So it's designed to go over the top of, like your coat or what have you. And it's brilliant. I am absolutely in love with this. This is the pattern, as I've said a few times now, that Kati from Pie and Anne, that's her design name, and her Ravelry name and Instagram name is Knit So Crochet. Yes, of course the sun would suddenly come back out. 2 seconds. There we go. Sorted. Who designed this awesome, awesome cowl after getting in touch and saying that she wanted to do a cowl, and she asked me a couple of questions, so I got to feed in and stuff, and she obviously picked the colour orange, and I then made it up in orange as well. It's a different yarn to the one that she made it in, for 2 reasons. One, I didn't get my act together and decided to just buy the yarn from the American seller because I was all like, oh, I don't know, and then I missed the discount, and then I was like, oh, and then I knew she was going to discontinue it, and she discontinued it. I was too slow. But this is West Yorkshire Spinners Blueface Leicester Aran, which is a good British yarn, and so I don't feel bad because, you know, I'm allowed to be a little bit patriotic sometimes. And it is super, super snug. Now you can kind of do this with it basically. It doesn't kind of want to sit too high up on me, and I think if I made another one, when I make another one, I might make it actually, I might adjust the pattern slightly and make it tighter so that it will grip me. But because I've got all of this fuzz, actually having things like scarves around my mouth and what have you usually results in bits of fluff in my beard and this really annoying sensation. So as it is at the moment, is really nice because it kind of sits and it's snug and what have you around here. And if I was cold still, I could wear any of my sort of mini scarves, you know, my lace scarves. I could put one of those on, right tight around my neck that would kind of just sit here. and then plop this on over the top, and then I would be toasty warm. And this is kind of a bit more of a fashion accessory as well, with my tassels. Come on, let's see the tassels again. How cool are they? Tassels! And the cabling that runs down and up here. And can you tell I'm excited by it? I'm very, very excited by it. I finally finished it. Now, I washed this and then lay it flat to dry, but already it's sagging a tiny bit more than it was. So it might be that actually it's a little bit looser than it would have been if I hadn't done something that I did when I washed it as well. Because I can, particularly if I fold it over, I can really open it out and just kind of have it quite low. Or if I pull it down but with the cables up, like that, I can do a kind of a fashion cowl, or I can do that thing of folding it over. And it all still works, which is great, but it's down here. Whereas I have to kind of just bunch it up a bit to get it to sit up. But of course, you know, that's cool and it works. So it's a bit of something for me to play with, really. And I shall probably have a chat with Kati about everything that I've experienced. So she's already done some changes to the pattern from me test knitting it to make it even awesomer. So who knows? She might adjust something, or we'll have a conversation around why mine's turned out like this and whether that's okay or wrong or right or just different, or who knows. But check me out. I've got my little orange hat with my little quiff going on today. My awesome orange cowl and my orange jumper. So I'm toasty warm in our dining room. I might just leave it on actually because I'm not too hot. So yeah, that's my exciting project, finished object. Do a couple more stitches. There we go. Thing is, if I actually finish this round too quickly, I think maybe I've got one more round of this colour. But anyway, I could finish this colour way too soon and I'd be having to do colour work live on the show. So yeah, we'll just go with this. And if you excuse me one moment, the inevitable has happened. I've sat down to record. And that means that Rory wants to be let in, doesn't it? There we go. Give it 2 minutes. He'll be wanting to let back out again. So that's it for finished objects. But I do have a couple of WIPs on the go. The first, no, I'll do that one second because I have to do my spoiler alert warning, don't I, for that one? Because it's the MCAL. Nobody's come back to say whether or not the spoiler was useful or not, so I'm just going to keep doing it because, because it's fun. So, this is the test knit that I mentioned last week but kind of didn't say anything about because I hadn't bothered speaking to the designer, and then basically, as soon as I got it loaded up, I got a message going, yes, you can talk about the design. I think it was yes, you can show it. Because it was Ellie from FO and That's who I'm test knitting for. And basically, as soon as I put it up, she'd been like, yay, and gone to watch it. And then, because it was one of the first things I'd mentioned, she was like, yeah, you can talk about it. So it's like, yay! So, I get to show you guys what I've been doing. This is called Endurance, and I showed you kind of just the colour of it. Now I haven't finished a row, have I? That was very, very silly of me. Am I anywhere? No, I'm nowhere near the end to be able to stretch it out a bit more for you guys, so you'll just have to see. But anyway, if I hold it, this is what I've got done so far, so it's not masses. I did have about this much done. And then I sent a photo to Ellie going, hey Ellie, look, I've done the first section. And she went, the cabling's really nice. The rest of it's kind of not what it's meant to be. So there's a bit of back and forth. And it turns out I'm a really good test knitter because I'm very literal. I do exactly what the instructions say. And unless there's a logical fault in the instructions, which means I can't do what the instructions say because it doesn't all match up, I just keep going. So I'd done the body of the shawl flipped. I'd got the border on the right side and then the texture for the middle bit on the wrong side. Technically, it was an error in the PDF version of it that she'd sent me. So she'd sent me the written up pattern, and there'd been, I think, two characters in the pattern missing. And it caused this whole kerfuffle, but not caused a logical error. So any of you programmers out there thinking about parsing and what have you, it passed fine, but it did not give the required result. Bug! So, sorry, yes, I've not really shown you very much there, have I? I'm just thinking, oh, I've shown you it all last time. So I've had this ball of goodness here. This is what I ripped out and re-hand wove. So I'm shifting myself forward. There we go. Second row. So all of that, that's what I had knitted up. Yeah, gutted, man, gutted. But, you know, hey, the life of a test knitter, these things happen. But this yarn is the Socks That Rock. It's a Rare Gem Mill Ends colourway. Absolutely beautiful greys and blues. It's not even really grey, it's kind of a dirty cream or something, kind of oddly enough, and then these gorgeous blues. And yeah, so the design itself has this lovely cabling here, and then it's going to go up into some textured pattern, which I'll get right this time. He says, fingers crossed. Oh, I've tangled my yarn, just a second. There we go. A little bit of hold music for you all. So yeah, I'm knitting it in 4-ply, but the pattern itself could be done in 4-ply or DK, and there's even, is it called a scarf? I think it's called a scarf. Let me just check. Yes, there's a DK scarf variation, which obviously is like a shawly scarf type variation. So that's cool. I'm doing it I'm doing the fingering weight version. So yes, many stitches across. This has made me so unafraid of knitting sweaters, because I'll talk about a book that I've been reading recently later on. But in that book it was talking about sort of, oh, if you were doing this and this and this, you'd need about 200 stitches around for a sweater. And I was like, oh. And that previously would have been like, oh my god, 200 stitches around. Now I'm like, 200? Please. That's nothing. So, you know, the good news is I'm now so not afraid of knitting up sweaters. And I shall be getting back to this. After I ripped it out, I did about 5 rows, and then I just didn't really have the heart. It knocked the wind out of my sails a little bit. I'm still going to finish this, obviously, and I don't want Ellie to feel bad. She did feel she was awfully apologetic afterwards, and I was like, no, you know, I'm test knitting. I don't mind there being problems when I'm test knitting. That's kind of part of the course, and you know, if I thought to kind of go, okay, this is what I'm doing, this is how I interpret the pattern right now, this is what I'm going to be knitting now, just to kind of keep a bit more conversation going, then I wouldn't have knit that great big ball of yarn before getting back to it and just kind of going, oh, okay, it's just a quick update, to be told, oh yeah, that's wrong. Oh, dearie me. But yes, you'll know that the pattern will be absolutely fine when I've finished, because I am apparently really good for test knitting. So there we go. So the other work in progress I have to show you guys is one of the 2 mystery knit-alongs I've been doing. It's the Stephen West one I've got. The Josh one, because the pattern comes out a day later, I was going to do after I'd done the Stephen West one. And then I'm not quite sure what happened to this week, but it disappeared. I'm not entirely sure where it went, but yeah, it went. So, yesterday I started on clue 2 of the Stephen West one, and the story with this one, as anyone that follows me on Instagram knows, or indeed any of the nearly 20 people that I messaged on Ravelry, and or anyone that reads the In Search Of boards on Ravelry, I lost yarn chicken to it. So this is why, even though the pattern says X number of yards, you should be really careful with things like gauge, which I didn't check. I just went, it's the right needles, it's a shawl, it doesn't matter. Forgetting I was playing very close to the yardage on one of the balls of yarn, this being the one that I've run out of. So yeah, but as I said, I posted on Ravelry, and the lovely Kat, who is Knit Up Girl and has her Knit Up Girl blog, has responded on Ravelry actually to say, oh, give me your address and I'll send you some. So thank you, Kat. I'll respond to you on Ravelry, on YouTube as well. Yeah, for crying out loud, James. On Instagram as well. It's because I've been bashing all social media for this to try and find this yarn, because it's discontinued, and it was discontinued several years ago. Before, there was like some colourways, they got discontinued, there were some new ones. Those have now been discontinued along with the rest of the yarn. So it's like a really old discontinued version of the yarn. But so there are people that have it in their stashes, and basically the good news is that I'm getting some. So that you know, before anyone's diving into their stash, I've arranged with somebody in the UK who's going to post me some this afternoon. God bless. So I have the yarn now. Well, no, I have the yarn coming to me this afternoon, so it should be here. I mean, fingers crossed, it might get here tomorrow morning. That'd be pretty cool, right? You send out the alarm bells on a Tuesday night, and by Thursday morning you've got yarn. That's pretty awesome. It might not be, because, you know, postage, but still, fingers crossed. But yeah, so I lost a game of Yarn Chicken, so that's got stalled just before the end of Clue 2. I've got about 5 or 6 rows left, and actually I've only got 2 rows left in this particular colour. And given the yardage in the pattern, I'm wondering if that's the last time this colour will get used. Which means after I knit up about 4 rows of this colour, I will then have another, you know, 48 or 50 grams left in my stash. But you never know, it might be in Clue 3 and or 4. So it's good to have another ball of it sitting around. Because I apparently am quite a loose knitter, given that I've run out already and I should have had plenty. Well, I should have had enough. I should have had enough. But hey ho. So, yes, I think that's enough of the story. So, spoiler alert, skip to, where was it? It was about here, wasn't it? This time, if you don't want to see the show. Okay? That's your time. So, of course I have to remember again now. And again, Instagrammers will know that I completely forgot last time. I was halfway through uploading the podcast last week when I suddenly went, I didn't do my subtitles. Silly boy. So yes, it should be attached to 2 colours at the moment. It's only attached to 1. Because look, I lost Yarn Chicken! Boo hoo hoo! And basically, as you can see in that lovely patterning, I've got 1 lot of the orange and then the green to do, and that's it. So, barely anything at all. Dear. Oh, and again, I'm halfway down a row as well now, here, aren't I? So I can't really show you it in all its glory, but I'll show you a slice of it if I fold it up. And then you can get a feel for it, and I'll just keep hold of the needles. In fact, ow, oops, I'm pulling my stitches out now, let's not do that. Okay. Sorry guys, not very well prepared. I'm just pulling the needles right out so I don't drop stitches. So this is a stripe, a wedge, a wedge of the pattern so far. There we go, you can see it on the screen now as well. Let's hold it a bit better. So it starts at this end, and the actual wedges here are Clue 1. And then Clue 2 is this awesome brioche, and then this is actually a sort of a slip stitch. It's called Sassy Slips section. I've never done brioche before, so this is the first time doing brioche, and everyone sort of recommended, or you know, do a test beforehand before you go do it on your pattern. And I was all set up. Well, I spotted him this time, see. And I was all intending to do that, and then I got excited, watched the video by Stephen, and it takes you through brioching really, really well. So if you want to do brioche, and you're not sure, you're scared of it, I said this on my Instagram post, Stephen's video for Clue 2 of Exploration Station on YouTube. So it's West Knits is the channel, then Exploration Station Video 2 or Clue 2 or whatever it is, goes through really well all the stitches needed for brioche. And then he has got, like, because I looked at his patterns before, there's a free hat pattern of his that has brioche in it. Can't remember what it's called, but if you look at his free patterns, it'll be fairly obvious. And I imagine he'll use the same kind of instructions for that. I haven't looked at the pattern to check, but I imagine it'll be the same kind of, you know, he'll use the same stitch names and what have you for the brioche stuff. So that's really useful. And of course, anybody that's skipped now won't get that helpful information, but oh well. So yeah, and I really like how the colours have worked for me. So, you know, it's my moon wheat yellow on the green there, background, and then this kind of green and orange combo popping out. So it's really cool. I really like this shawl. I'm really looking forward to finishing it. Really. So yeah, I'm super excited, and thank you very much to the random person who won't watch this podcast, I'm sure. But I will say that I've given her a big thank you on here. And it was brilliant because I had a few people actually, when I woke up this morning, I had a few people that had written back going, yes, you can have some of mine, I'll send it over to you. And I was all kind of set to do that, but then the last message I got was someone going, buy me this pattern and you can have my yarn. And I was like, now that's perfect. I don't know why, but for some reason that was just like, so I picked that person. Because when you suddenly, like, you've asked a load of people, because I didn't know that anyone was going to check their messages, like, this morning. I was amazed how many people check their Ravelry messages, like, daily. Oh, I was just really lucky. Because there's not that many people that have it. I only sent out about 15 messages, and I think I had 6 people respond this morning. But I thought, isn't that great? So I've bought a pattern for that person, and then she's gonna. And she also said, if you get this message in time, I'll send it in this afternoon's post. And I was like, and I checked it, and it was 3 minutes ago she sent it. So I was like, yes, done. I messaged her back. So that's awesome. So yeah, yay for the knitting community again. And I will work out what time I took the pattern off the screen so that the guys can come back. But yes, so just a very quick recap for the assistant. Well, no, I'm not going to say anything because it obviously is connected to the pattern, and I'm not doing spoilers, am I? And that would be a spoiler. But let's say if you're doing the pattern and you want help with Clue 2, well, you should already have it if you're doing the pattern. Yeah, forget it, it's fine. If you want to know what I'm talking about, go back and watch the spoilers. But it's not a big deal. I just gave some help for people who don't have the help because they're not doing the MCAL, so you don't really need to go back and see it if you're doing the MCAL, which would be the only reason you don't want spoilers. So, that's my faux and my whips. Is there anything else? No, that's all my faux and whips. So next would be stash enhancement. Yay! I had one of those moments this week where I suddenly went, did someone send me something? And I've forgotten. I've got one parcel that I know I need to talk about, and I realised what happened was I didn't write it in my book, because whenever anything happens knitting related, I write it in my book to talk about with you guys. And then I hadn't written it in, and I was like, where? Why have I not got my next episode thread already set up in my book? Episode thread. It's like page of notes. Why have I not been writing stuff already? Because this was like only like 2 days ago I started doing this. And I was like, panic! But I'm pretty sure I only got one parcel this week. How? No, I'm not going to feel bad. I feel grateful, I feel blessed, I feel fortunate, I feel so much gratitude. it's that very British thing of like, oh, you've done something for me, oh, I must feel guilty. And I'm not going to do that. I do this every time. I get quite emotional when I think about how many people have sent me lovely things. So there's the lovely bags that I've been sent, handmade by you guys, and there's others as well, obviously. I'll do some knitting whilst I'm doing this. I keep forgetting that I've got the knitting to do. And, well, yeah, I'm distracted now. Now I'm trying to see I can't do knitting and spontaneous talking. It doesn't work. I should have planned better. It's pulled me out of my little emotional revelry. But, yeah. Calmed me down a bit as well, actually. That's quite nice. Knitting is good for you. So thank you to everybody that has sent me something in the last 10 weeks. That's it. This is episode 11, so it's been 10 weeks that my podcast has existed on the internet. And in 10 weeks, I have received so many different things, just from lovely messages to patterns and pattern collections to handmade bags to full-on like skeins of yarn and fibre and just all kinds of amazing stuff. So this week it's a bit more of a swap really, but not really, because I was like, oh, I know Casey's sending me some lovely stuff. Carty is going to send me some, so I'll buy some extra bits to say thank you for making this amazing design and letting me test knit it, so I get it early. And she outdid me. I was like, oh, I'll buy this and this and this, and I was like, okay, that's that's going to be too much if I go anymore. It'd just be silly. No, it wouldn't have been, because she sent me a whole freaking box of stuff. And I Instagrammed the box, and it's since gone into recycling. I should have saved that as well, because it was amazing. I can't quite remember what it was called. It's something like Prinzessin Zizifair all over the box. It had a little fairy princess and flying pigs and hearts and sparkles. And she assured me that it was just because it was the right size box that she had. I don't mind. I thought it was brilliant. But she sent me a box of bits and pieces, and I Instagrammed the stuff that was in it, and did like a live opening on Instagram because I was so excited. But I'm going to show you guys as well, obviously. So I've put most of the stuff now just in my cloth bag, because when I get bits and pieces that I photographed but haven't shown you guys, they go in one bag, and then there's stuff I haven't shown you goes in one bag, and stuff I haven't photographed and put in my stash on Ravelry goes in another bag, and then everything else gets put away in my stash. It's a very complicated system I have to have. So, first thing to hand. This is what she originally sent me a photo of. She said, she originally said, I'm going to go to the Vollmeiser shop. Can't you spoil me? I don't know why the rest of that sentence was a German accent, I'm sorry. Or a faux German accent. Last time I tried to speak German with a German person, they told me I sounded French. Which is fine, because I was living in France at the time. And I just was like, oh, well, convoluted story time, whatever. In my first year at uni, I was friends with a lot of international students, because I really love languages. They were in the same building on campus as me. I really love international people, often more than British people. And for some reason, they found me easy to understand. So I think it's because I enunciate clearly, what have you. I have had feedback from the podcast saying that I talk very quickly. This is true. I do. I get excited. When I'm in normal conversation, I tend to slow down a little bit. Can you tell when I'm thinking about it? I slow down. I'm easier to understand. So particularly if I'm speaking with somebody who I know doesn't have English as a first language, I'll slow down to more like this kind of a pace. When I'm excited and babbling away because it's you guys and I'm holding yarn, I speed up a bit. But they all said, how easy it was to understand me and stuff, and it was great. So I was like, oh, this is really cool. And then I would speak bits of different languages with them, and my German friends had said, oh, you have a really good German accent. And I was like, oh, thank you. So anyway, fast forward to my third year, which I spent in France, because the universe is a wonderful place, and I managed to wangle that by changing some of my course details. Yeah, it was amazing. But anyway, I was in Strasbourg, which is on the France-German border pretty much. It's very close to Germany. So we had quite a few German people, did sort of exchanges and stuff and came over. So I was talking to them, and when I spoke in German with them, you went, "Oh, you sound French." But I'd been living in France for probably about 6 months at this point. And I really was, I had French in my head, but I found now that, like I went to Italy on holiday afterwards. This is years ago now. I mean, I've been in uni for, let's just say over a decade. And when I spoke in Italian to the waiter, I mean, it's literally like "posso avere il conto per favore" or something like that, and I didn't even try an Italian accent there. Because I now know from having spoken to Italian friends that my Italian accent, that I can't do the R. I'm going to get back to one point eventually. The R is supposed to be with the tongue up at the front of the mouth. And she was teaching me, and I sound like an Italian child when I try and do it, because it's a with the tongue up at the front. The other way of saying your R sound is with the tongue down at the back, and that's how I normally speak. And interesting, tangent on my tangent on my tangent on my tangent. If you know Jonathan Ross, or you know people that have difficulty pronouncing their R's, so Jonathan Ross is very famous for being Jonathan Ross, because he can't pronounce his R sound very well. It comes out as a W sound. And that's because he's learnt to say it using the tongue down and back version. So it's more like a W, and the tongue up and forward version is more like an L. So the Japanese sound that's halfway between an R and an L, you have to kind of, it's obviously made by moving the tongue forward. Arigato. Yeah, so there's a Japanese word with a not quite R, not quite L in it. Arigato. And you have to move your tongue forward to do that one properly. But it's kind of halfway between the two. That's the RL, and that's the Italian R, has that kind of R sound. And because I can't get it to vibrate to make the R noise that I can when I do it in the back of my throat for the French R, that kind of throaty R, mais oui bien sûr, est-ce que je peux vous aider, all that kind of stuff. But I can't do that one at the moment. Work my way back, James, work my way back. Something about my German accent. Yeah, when I was speaking in Italian, posso levare il conto, per favore. I can't do the per favore. They said, vous êtes français? And I was like, non, non, je suis anglais, mais je sais que j'ai l'accent français. Which is basically, no. They said, are you French? I'm like, no, I'm English. But I know that when I speak a foreign language, I sound French. So that's true of German and Italian apparently, and Spanish. I had someone else tell me that as well. So hey ho, that's what happens. I became very fluent in French. Well, conversationally, I had a vocab test at the end of the year, and I sucked. Because she asked me to speak about children's education. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I've been chatting to my friends about dance and about like going out and socialising. I haven't been sitting and having high level intellectual conversations about the education system. So no, I don't know any of the vocabulary about the children's education system in France. So yeah, I failed that bit miserably on the test. And therefore my overall French proficiency test at the end of the year, because I just thought it'd be fun to do it, wasn't particularly high. But it was good enough, my French was good enough to get into a French grammar test at the end of the year for my 4th year at uni. So when I went back, I wangled my way onto a French grammar module because I'd done the course, it's called European Studies, where I'd gone abroad for a year, supposedly to study my subject, maths. I didn't. I think I went to 2 weeks worth of lectures and then realised that this was a bad idea, sacked it all off, and went off and enjoyed being in France. And actually, that was when I learned contemporary dance for the first time. That gave me my career as a contemporary dancer many years, well, what, 8... how old was I when I started? 27, so about 7 years later. So, you know, made the right decision, clearly. But yeah, because I'd done that, I was allowed to request to do a French module in my final year as part of my degree. So I did a French elective in my first year, but that doesn't count towards your degree. But I got a high score anyway, and that was before I even changed my courses. So I was like, come on, you know, I'm already doing a French elective. Yes, I want to go to France. Yes, I want to do French things. I love French language. I want to be in France. But yeah, so I did that, and literally the night before I was going in to get sort of a test to make sure I'd have a decent enough standard to be able to do a third year, or fourth year technically module, but like a final year module in French. My roommate, my housemate at the time, because I was now living out, was a languages student, a really good friend of mine, Louise, and I'm not kind of falling out of touch with her really, which is a shame. But you know, Facebook and stuff and what have you, and you kind of see what each other's doing. But we don't chat particularly, but I still miss her. I still think she's awesome. I still see her on Facebook. She's lovely. But she was a languages student, so she taught me some kind of basic sort of A-level French grammar that I hadn't maybe done, because I'd only done GCSE French. My school wouldn't let me do French A-level. Oh, I tell you, the story goes on a while, right? I was really annoyed. They wanted me to do general studies, which obviously I got like an A in. Actually, that sounds really big-headed. Okay, I'm a very intelligent person, and I have a really good general knowledge from doing pub quizzes for my entire childhood. So, it kind of, to me, it was obvious I was going to get an A in it. To the school, it was obvious I was going to get an A in it, but they said I had to do general studies. It's like, just let me sit the frickin' test. Everybody in my year knows I'm a frickin' nerd brainiac. Well, you know, nobody cares if I take an extra test without sitting in the classes. But you know, no, you've got to do general studies classes. I don't know what Ofsted tick box it was made. I don't know, but they wouldn't let me do French A level as a result. More fool to them, right? I just meant I didn't bother trying, and you got 4 A's and a B. I'm such a show-off sometimes. Yeah, the school hacked me off. I should have gone to a different school. I went to that school because my best friend was going and my sister went. And this is the same best friend, actually, who I asked, which universities are you going to, and just followed him to the university that he ended up going to. So, yeah. It's fair to say. I don't think he'll ever watch this, and we're not in touch anymore. When I came out, we kind of stopped really being friends anymore. And it might be because he kind of knew, although I never did anything about it, that he was my first crush. Majorly. You know, I'd grown up with the chap. Like, since we were 5, we knew each other and went to the same primary school, same secondary school, same university. Kind of because I followed him there, but that was very subconscious, okay? Very, very subconscious. I did not work out my orientation until I was at university, and it wasn't because of him. But I realised that I was crushing on him really badly. And I thankfully had a very, very good friend who I was emailing at the time, who was like 4 years younger than me and much, much wiser, who went, say nothing to him. And she was absolutely right. Even when I came out, he got really kind of, not standoffish, but it just, I think he got uncomfortable. And I've only then seen him once since uni, and there was a little bit of an uncomfortable moment again, because we were doing horseplay on a inflatable whatevers, and I was just like, ugh. Dude, get over yourself. Like, by that point, I've been with my partner for 10 years. It's like, please, get over yourself. But anyway, oh, I'm losing my thread now. I've been doing pretty well. Winding back, something about university and French. So yeah, she taught me, my friend taught me a load of grammar, and the one thing she taught me that we went over that I had never seen before was called the subjunctive in French. I think it's subjunctive in English. I think that's just what it is in English, subjunctive. And she basically gave me an example of its use. She said there's various places it's used, and it is a little bit more complicated, but she gave me one specific point at which it's used, and a basic rule for how you conjugate in that position, and 2 common, what is it, like, the ones that break the rules kind of thing. I can't think of the word now. But basically, if you know any French, you've got avoir and être, which are the 2 It's to have and to be, and they're sort of very common verbs, and they're often don't follow grammatical rules. They have their own conjugations for like everything. What is the word? Irregular. There we go. It flitted past my brain there, so I thought I'd try and grab it. So I learnt those two, and I went into the test, and literally I passed the test by I think 1 point, and there was 1 point where there was a subjunctive clause, and I was like, oh, this should be the subjunctive, and it was avoir. So I was like, I'll put an E, just basically I put an E on the end of one word. That got me an extra point, and I passed, and I got into the test. Booyah! Which meant that I got to do French as part of my degree in my final year. And I mean, I didn't do massively well. I got a 2-2 in that module. I got first in all of my maths ones, or at least almost all of them. I think I got first in all of them. I told you I'm a nerd, right? I am a massive brainiac nerd when it comes to things. I love learning, and I just am quite intelligent. And if this feels really braggy, then I'm sorry, but it's actually a really sore spot for me, and I would never have ever said anything like this, except it's something that I've been dealing with a lot recently in therapy. So now I get to brag about it. But yeah, so that was really cool. And I think I've rounded off all of my ends, really, which all came from me saying Vollmeiser in a slightly bad German accent. So let's get back to Stash Love. Half an hour later. I have no idea how long this is going to be, and I don't care, and neither do you. So, the lovely Kati from Pie and Ann, who is Knit So Crochet on Instagram and Ravelry, went to Vollmeiser, and then she sent me a photo going, look what I found, ping! Yeah, exactly, right? You're going, oh my gosh, Jane's yarn! So this, oh, okay, that's really catching the daylight, that's glaring a bit. But it's got sort of burnt oranges through to bright oranges with some yellows, a little bit of browns in them, then some dark autumnal reds. I am going to say black, but they're kind of deep purple slash, so therefore maybe a really deep blue, like a very, very dark bluey black, because where it merges into the red, it's gone quite purple rather than just dark red. But then that might just be the red it starts with, so who knows. So it's kind of black, dark red, dark orange, bright orange and yellow. So absolutely gorgeous. And they wind their skeins really firmly. This is like good German yarn, yeah? It's heavy. But it's 150 grams per skein. It's merino superwash, 100%, hand painted. Look at me getting fancy now. It says handgefärbt, which means hand coloured. So I'm going with hand painted as my translation. And it says nobody is perfect, thriller. So I'm guessing nobody is perfect is the base and thriller is the colourway. And it says, yeah, 574 yards for 150 grams. Oddly enough, it gives it metric as well, but it says 350 metres per 100 grams. So then you have to do the maths if you're going to use metric. But they do the maths for you if you're using imperial. And needle size 2 to 2.5, so it's fingering 4-ply. And I'm very, very excited. I haven't decided what I'm going to do with this at all. I'm kind of stuck headfirst in all the stuff I've got going on at the moment, and I've got a load of Christmas knitting that I really, really, really need to get started. And I'm thinking I may actually have to put my MCALs down, despite all of my like, oh my god, everyone out of yarn, quick, everybody send me yarn! Last night, and I've now got some yarn coming, hopefully, whilst I'm recording this. She might be taking it to the post right now. I might actually stop and check my messages at some point just to make sure. I'm thinking maybe I should at least cast on and really get moving on some Christmas projects, because I don't want to get to December and then be freaking myself out just because I got carried away on the MCALs, right? That would be silly. And just doing the MCALs a little bit late, who cares, right? And this, okay, a little bit of therapy for James now. Okay, we're having lots of divergence today because I just jumped down and started talking. That's what happens. Less notes, more chit-chat. See, now I was going to talk about this later on, in case... In case what, actually? In case you just wanted to see the knitting? If you just want to see the knitting, go watch someone else's podcast. My podcast lasts at least 2 hours long. And they're mostly me talking, with lots of lovely yarn things as well. But I stick in a whole bunch of realness as well. And if you haven't worked that out by now, because this is your first podcast, then welcome. Please stay. But if you don't want to listen to me ramble on about my life, my emotions, myself, the world in general, what I think about things, you're watching the wrong podcast. There we go. Everyone else already knows that. And there's no hard feelings. Just, you know. Yeah, I'm getting a little bit defensive, aren't I? Sorry about that. No need to get defensive. Chill out. Therapy does wonders for you, even if it's only after the end. So, yeah, MCALs. I'm leaning back now, so it's going to be a long one. I got quite worked up. And I think I mentioned last week that I got stressed and was chilling out or what have you. I don't really go into it much. If I did, I don't remember what I talked about. But for some reason, well, I know what the reason is now, but at the time I didn't. And I just kind of, Josh had talked, is Josh sword of a knitter? Sword as in pointy thing that you stab people with in olden times? Not anymore. He was talking about his MCAL and the Stephen West Knits MCAL, which is a mystery knit along in case you're not sure and haven't picked that up. On his podcast, which I watch religiously because I love Josh's stuff. I think his designs are amazing. I think his podcast is amazing. And I also think he's quite pretty, so, you know, there's that. He was talking about the mystery knit-alongs. I just suddenly went, oh my god, I've got to do this mystery knit-alongs. The clue's really in this guy whose designs I really like, whose podcasts I really like, and who I think is quite pretty, was just raving about these things, and then suddenly I want to do them. Jeez. I wonder why. I am so easily influenced, aren't I? It's not even funny sometimes. Basically, if someone goes to me, hey James, do this with me, I'm like, okay, well, what are we doing? Thankfully, I've got quite nice people in my life, so I've never ended up in any trouble because of it. Other than emotional trouble, as I'm telling you now. So I joined 2 new mystery knit-along shawls, and then my friend Ellie had written to me and said, oh, that lovely yarn you showed on your podcast would be great to do a test knit, well, to knit my shawl in. And I was like, yay! Where's the pattern? And she went, oh, well, it's still being test knit now. So I'm like, well, how do I get a copy? She goes, well, you can test knit. And I'm like, yes, please, give it to me now! And then, like, within that week, kind of had a total kind of knitting meltdown moment. Well, okay, that's being melodramatic. As my therapist would say, grandiose. Which basically just means I'm being a big drama queen. But behind that is, you know, that's my response to, I'm getting overwhelmed and I don't know what to do about it. And the sort of the sensible thing would just be to sit and go, well, okay, let's look at what needs doing, what can you prioritise? So, for example, I could very easily I could even go back to Ellie and say, oh, Ellie, I'm really, really sorry, I shouldn't have signed up for the test knit, yada, yada. As it is at the moment, because I'm a bit deflated on the test knit, it's sitting to one side, but she gave me a really clear time she'd like it done by, so I'm working to that, and that's fine. And I know what I can get done in a day, so I know how many sort of hours I need to spend to get it done. So I've still got loads of time, so I'm just going to put it to one side for a bit, chill out, have a break, and then come back and I'll storm through it. Plus, if I get a bunch of Christmas knitting done in the meantime, then I won't feel so bad dedicating some time to that. But obviously, both of the mystery knit-alongs are entirely optional. And it's just that kind of a thing of, but everyone else is doing them now! And it's like, so what? There's plenty of other people I know that have said, oh, I was really interested, I might do it later. But for some reason, because it's coming out on a weekly basis, I have this real, like, drive that I've got to keep up and I've got to do it this week and I've got to da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, which is why I sat and spent the whole of yesterday doing the Westminster one, because I was like, I've got to get Clue 2 finished before Clue 3 comes out. Like, for who? Who cares? Nobody cares. It's okay not to do it. This is totally for me to hear right now. And I've still got it. I've still got this drive. I still desperately want to knit both of them up by the time the next clues come out. And I've got all this Christmas knitting sitting there, and I'm putting that off and putting that off and putting that off because I'm like, oh, it's not even December yet. Like, if I sit and think about it, if we just step out of all of that craziness for a second and just go, okay, if I just put that down for a moment and just think about what would be sensible. Obviously, I would just put everything down and get some Christmas knitting done. Because everyone's in October was like, right, if I'm going to do Christmas knitting this year, I'm going to have to get it started now. It's like nearly mid-November, and I'm procrastinating on it because I'm getting all worked up about wanting to do knitting that other people are involved in. And this is entirely what it's about. It's about knitting that other people are involved in, that they're invested in some way. So Ellie's test knit is like, Ellie's invested in that with me. The mystery knit-alongs is all the other people knitting. And it's a way for me to kind of have an excuse to talk to Josh. I'm such a fanboy, it's disgusting. I even ended up having a little a separate conversation about it all with Ellie over text because I got quite upset. I was like, ah! She was talking me down off my perch. Silly do I. So yes, there's that. And yeah, so I really don't. I want to do Josh's MCAL. I want to do Stephen West's MCAL. These are two guys who I massively, massively respect and basically want to have as my friends. I think they're both amazing people. I mean, Stephen used to be a dancer and is now into knitting. Come on. They're both blatantly younger than me. They're both pretty. But I feel like we've got lots in common, so I should be really good friends with them. But I have a thing about friendship in that I suck at it. And that's not just to put myself down and elicit sympathy. I lack practice. I never really got how to be a friend as a kid. As I've said, super smart. I hinted at none of the kids would care if I was doing extra tests because they all thought I was a nerdy brainiac anyway. That kicked off the second I got to secondary school. And I didn't really have any friends, well, ever. Which is really harsh to all the people that considered me their friend and considered that they were my friend and are my friend. And it's this really weird thing where I feel really insecure, basically, about my friendships. And I know how horrible that is to be the person that's not insecure in the friendship, because I have had and have friends who are very insecure, even more insecure than I am. You know, this is me post-therapy. Well, is there a word for during? There's pre and post. What about during in therapy? There should be a word. Pre... We do a P... practicing and post-therapy? I don't know. Anyway. So I've done a fair bit of work on it, but it's still something I'm doing a lot of work on. And I upset people sometimes when I tell them that I'm really insecure and I don't feel like I have any friends, because like, hang on, I thought we were friends. It's really a shitty thing to say to a friend. I'm like, yeah. And what it doesn't mean is anything about all the awesome things that I feel about my friends. Because I do have friends. The people that I consider my friends are my friends. And if I take the part of my head, or the part of my brain, the part of my mind, that gets really anxious and insecure away, if I just kind of split that off for a bit, and I can kind of do that stuff now, and just kind of see it as being separate. It's not all of me, it's part of me. then the rest of me actually has really good friends with really good friendships. That's what's nice now. I certainly didn't have it growing up. But I feel very worried about how I manage that. And I probably sabotage a whole bunch of stuff as well. Like by telling my friends, I don't have any friends. Anyway, this is getting a little bit too much like James's personal monologue of therapy, so... So yeah, let's move on. Is there anything actually out of that I really wanted to say? Not that I can think of. But yeah, a little bit more about me and my process. And why I'm in therapy. But yeah, relationships are difficult, guys. And if you're younger than me, because some people younger than me watch this, I don't know why, I just assume anyone that watched this would be older than me in my head, but actually, like, if Cara watches this, I know she's younger than me by a good chunk. And there's probably others. I imagine Maya Shermaine is younger than me. I don't know for sure, but I think she is. But anyway, the whole thing was just to say it gets better. Everything, it gets better. Things change, things get better. I'm in the change process, but I've done enough to be convinced that it is getting better and it will be better. Right, let's get back to woolly things. So I've shown you the gorgeous, gorgeous volumizer. And that kicked off the whole swap thing. Because she was like, I'm going to send you these. And I was like, okay, well, how much money do you want? She's like, no, but I'd love you to make me one of those lacy scarves. So I showed you those before I sent them off. I showed you the scarf I made. I also bought, and I didn't think to like film or photograph anything on this separately to show you some of the other stuff I bought. But I bought her some fleece from a Derbyshire farm and some yarn made from a Derbyshire sheep that was manufactured in Derbyshire. I'm not sure how much of the... so that the second one, the yarn, was from the one I told you about that was from a Derbyshire sheep. It's something like the long wool wood or something, longwood wool or something like that. I can't remember what the name of it is now. But I sent some yarn and some fibre, then I sent some orange, lovely little something from a British wool mill. Because she talked about making her scarf in British yarn, which is why I didn't use the Manos del Uruguay silk blend, because that's not British. So I sent a bunch of stuff over, but she beat me hands down. So yarn first. Oh, actually, no. I'll set it up how she had it because it was the cutest thing ever. Because she also sent me one of her, and she makes these, one of her moon bags. And I'll explain a bit more about that in a minute. But she sent me it like this. Can you see? A little bit of orange yarn poking out. That was brilliant. I was like, yay! Orange yarn! And what I also know is, because she said she was going to do this, so this is the orange yarn that she made her version of this out, so you can see the difference. Mine is a burnt orange, and hers is this really bright, lovely orange, which I'm quite jealous of. But there's not enough of this to make my own version of the cowl. But check that out, isn't that amazing? So this is hand dyed yarn. Oh gosh, you know, I can't actually remember who the American seller was now. It's discontinued anyway, so she doesn't do it anymore. But I think I did talk about it a few episodes ago when I was talking about Katie having made the pattern for me and going to send me the pattern and all of this and needing to get the yarn. I think I talked about it then. Which is lovely. It's quite, it's a semi-solid. which obviously means it's got a little bit more sort of texture going on for something like this, whereas this is totally a solid. But for something like cable and what have you, I'm happy, and for something like a big splash of orange down my front, say over a coat, what have you, perfect for me, so I'm very happy. And this will go in my stash to have something gorgeous made out of it, so thank you, Carty. And the reason this is called that wasn't the only thing in the moon bag, but that was the bit that made me giggle so much that I wanted to show you it. So the reason this is called a moon bag is because you can have it like this, and as you saw, you can kind of have the yarn poking out the side and what have you, and it buttons up, like that, and the fabric on the outside is these awesome dwarves and strawberries. Dwarves and strawberries! How cool is that? But the moon bag is very clever because half moon. I feel like I need to have a particular chocolate biscuit. Don't I, Dave? Full moon! So it's really clever because you can do it up. And Cara, I know, loves these because when I Instagrammed, she was so jealous! And I found out actually that Kati, being the awesome lady that she is going to send one to Cara as well because she saw on Instagram how jealous she was. But you can have it as a big, so you can just have it as a bigger bag with these gaps, but actually it's designed so that, if I just pull my jumper out of the way so I'm not faffing around, you can hang it on your wrist. So there's gap here, so you can use it as a travelling knit bag, which is pretty awesome. I haven't tried it like that yet, but how cool would that be? So I could just knit a pair of socks on the go. That would require me to be doing something that leads me out of the house, and I just don't bother doing that very often because, well, I don't want to. But anyway. Yeah, check out the awesomeness that is this. So the inside is just the strawberries. So it's obviously a complementary fabric, and then you can see inside Carty's awesome little logo with bunnies on it. So for those of you who don't know, before we had 2 kitties, we had 2 bunnies, and then we had 1 bunny, 1 kitty, and now we have 2 kitties. So my other half is a massive fan of bunnies and converted me to loving rabbits as pets. And I'm a massive fan of cats. I'm a massive fat can. I'm a massive fan of cats, and have converted my other half to the ways of the kitty. So much so that actually he was the one that suggested getting the second cat when we lost our second rabbit. He was like, it's too soon to get another rabbit. Can we get a kitty instead, a little kitten? So normally the second kitten is his, because the first kitten was mine, really. I needed one, and he was like, yes, you can have a kitten. So Rory is mine, and Stitch is his. But they're both ours, obviously. But yes, this amazing moon bag. And inside the moon bag was also a little notions pouch. It's like a little baggie, really. It's nothing too fancy. Obviously made in the complementary fabric there. So I don't know if she normally does these, or she just did these to put some bits in for my little package. But it's a cool little pouch that you can obviously use as a little notions pouch, just to pop bits in into the bag to keep them together. So in there I had some of her cards. Oh, I've not brought them through. I talk about her enough. Knit Sew Crochet, pionan.etsy.com with hyphens between the words. If you're not following already, you really should be. So I don't think I'm not going to feel too bad about not having a card right now. Carty, I'm sorry, I'll show the cards another time if you're upset with me. So in there she had some little tea bags. Yay! Which, if I'd been a bit more organised today and not rushing to get the light, I would have actually made one up and done a little tea section again. I'll save them for another time. As somebody pointed out, tea's not really my bag. Oh my god, they smell so good though. I think they are both green teas. It doesn't really say. It says, pro Tasse eine Aufgussbeutel mit sprudelnd kochendem Wasser übergießen und 7 von 10 Minuten ziehen lassen. Chai wird traditionell mit Milch zubereitet. Mit Milch. Milch. Milch? Milch. Zubereitet. So, I can tell you the last sentence means that chai is traditionally taken with milk. And I'm fairly sure the 7 to 10 minutes bit means that's how long you're meant to stew it for. Because it was in numbers, hence the pause. It's in numerals. 7 Wonnersehen. Testing my GCSE German from over half my life ago. But I don't know what aufgespüttelt mit Strudel und kochen then was. Oh, probably freshly boiled. Yeah. I'm going to go with stick in a teapot with freshly boiled water and stew and let it sit for 7 to 10 minutes. Chai is traditionally taken with milk. That's what I'm going to say it says. That, guys, is how you translate. Yeah, if you don't speak the language, you find the words you recognise, and then you guess the rest. The other one's slightly different. It doesn't say anything about milk, but the rest is the same. So I'm going to guess there might be green teas, but I won't find until I pull it out, and then we'll see. And I'll make them, and I'll try them, using Josh's recipe. I also got some sweeties! Yay! She did send me another one. You'll notice it is absent. That is because it has already been eaten. Quite frankly. I've stuck the tea and the sweets in my little toolbox. Have I shown you my toolbox? I'll show it. It's been a while if I have. So this is my toolbox of goodies. This is what I have all of my sort of notions and stuff in. I'm trying not to spill it all. So all of my needles and my cardboard cutout for my foot and stuff like that sit in the bottom here, and my stitch markers and my gauge meter and all my spare cords and stuff. And I've got scrap wool strands, like, you know, if my hand was at the edge of the screen, that kind of long. And then up here I have my stuff for making up my interchangeable cables, my stitch markers that are big, my headphones when I'm watching podcasts with my other half around, my cable needles and tapestry needles, and my short DPNs. Then at the top I have my long DPNs, tape measure, scissors, my little needle gauge, as well as little ruler thing. Very, very useful. Definitely worth the sort of £1.50 I think I spent. A pen for marking patterns. Awesome little buttons I got for, I think, Christmas last year from my friend. On my birthday, maybe my birthday. Can't remember when it was exactly. Maybe it's my birthday. It doesn't feel like it was last year. Which I haven't yet used, but I am going to use, okay? They will get used. I feel so bad. And then my blocking pins, and then my safety pins, which basically are removable stitch markers but made out of metal. So I just don't leave them in because they might rust and stuff like that. It has also, I'll try and do this without tilting the box too much because of all the things like my pins and stuff, but it's got my awesome stickers on top that I bought at an M-Con, I think it was. It's like a little sci-fi nerdy conference in Nottingham. And then this one down here says Everybody Games, which I got for funding the Kickstarter for the Gamer X conference, which is a massive sort of gaming conference in San Francisco to be all-inclusive. So it was set up by I think it was set up by two gay guys, and it was sort of supposed to be queer-friendly, and then that kind of expanded into alternative-friendly, sort of a safe space conference for gaming. And I ended up not going because I left it way too long to get organised, and I was really nervous. You know, as I've told you a bit about my particular issues, the idea of going all the way over to San Francisco to spend a weekend scared the insert expletive here out of me. So I procrastinated, and then the tickets had been like $1,000 to go over for the weekend. So I was like, no, I can't possibly go now. And my sister was a bit miffed because she bought tickets to go with me, but was like, well, you have to sort it out, and I just never did. So we never sorted it out. But I supported the Kickstarter, and that stays little babies at the front are also from that GamerX, and they did 2 separate conferences, and now the next one, I think either there is going to be a GamerX 3 because somebody suddenly stepped in to fund it because they liked it so much, or they're kind of doing GamerX events in and around other. So I think it's maybe not been massively financially bringing in the money, because obviously it's a bit niche. And it's not only, it's a safe space one, so obviously it excludes all the bigots. So anybody that's going to go around groping, what do they call the women they get to dress up really scantily and hang around in games conferences? It's just ridiculous. So anybody that goes to conferences to harass them, harass cosplayers, or is basically a massive homophobic bigot, won't go because they'll be massively unwelcome and chucked out very, very quickly. And it's it's obviously set up velvet rope type scenario where they self-exclude. But that obviously makes it a little bit less popular. But super, super awesome from what I can see. So yeah, I got stickers for that, so I stuck them on there as well. If you know of any knitting stickers, my little tub could do with knitting stickers. So yeah, as well as the tea, there was also in the moon bag a little Volkswagen toy, which Carty did say at the time. Let's see if I can get it to focus on my hand rather than... There we go. I don't know if it recognised faces or something, that if my face is in the camera it tends to refocus. She said it's for the cats because it's one of those wind-up toys. If you saw my Instagram video, I did a little special reveal because it does that. You round it back and then it goes wee, which is very, very cool. I've tried it with cats. Mild interest. They kind of watched it move, maybe walked over to sniff it, but they're not the kind of cats that go crazy for stuff. I have to work hard to get them to play. So it's for me really, right? We all know it's for me really. Yay! You basically just sat and watched me look to the side there, didn't you? That's ridiculous. What are you watching this podcast for, you crazy people? So, another thing that was in there was an awesome mini skein of beautiful green. Now, Connie may have told me what this was, but I don't think she did. Like, she told me she was sending me the orange thing because it's the same yarn as she knit this out of at her end, and yada yada yada. But I think it's just a mini skein of gorgeous variegated green. Now, when I tried to photograph this, you see those quite dark blue-green streaks? They came out on my camera phone as just blue. So I'll be interested to see how they come out on this screen. Because if they come out the right colour, then I might see about trying to use this to take stills, this camera to take stills of the more awkward colours, like red and orange together just always come out as red. Kind of they glare out my camera phone, and I think that's normal for cameras generally. Because Elizabeth Green Musselman, who is Dark Matter Knits, was talking about she wasn't allowed to wear red to go on the camera, to do something she got invited to do, because it wreaks havoc with the video cameras. So red is obviously just a colour that's a pain, whereas orange on its own always comes out fine, but the second it's got red next to it, something goes horribly wrong. And then this was coming out as having just blue randomly, and it's not. It's all variegated bits of green. It's a very blue green, but it's obviously a green. It's not like, oh look, there's blue in there. To the naked eye. I mean, it stands out, but still. So it's a cool little mini skein I've got. So that was most of the stuff in the bag. The other thing that was in the bag was, and I'm being very careful with these, and I'll tell you why after I've shown you them, was some very, very cool little stitch markers. So I've got some that are the plain, oh, I'm going to have to lean forwards again, excuse me. Some that are the plain hook kind, So you can kind of just see that it's just a wire hook. So it's your standard stitch marker. And then I'll leave my hands up on the camera for a second. And I've got 2 of these, but it's a bit fiddly to do it one-handed, which are the lobster claw kind. Yeah, so I had 2 of those and 2 of those. Beautiful colours, all in my colours. Orange, green, blue and brown. So the lobster claws are orange and green, the stitch markers are blue and green. And they're beautiful. Now the reason for being very careful, and I'm storing them now, and you can probably guess from me saying this, in my amazing rainbow tin from Alex, who is spinning and stitching on Etsy, spinningandstitching.etsy.com. So I bought from her D-stash, which is possibly still ongoing, so do check out is it Alexandra Mackenzie? Alexandra Mackenzie on Ravelry. My little pride tin, as it were. It doesn't have to be pride tin. As I've said before, the rainbow is for y'all. And yeah, but, you know, I love it because it's like, yay! Learning to own my pride. Own my gayness. So my little lobster claw, I'll just pop it on here for the moment because I love wearing it like that, like a little decoration. When I went to grab the stuff from Carly to show you this morning, well, technically this afternoon, I pulled the bag out and I pulled the pouch out of the bag and I emptied the bag into my hand and went, no, this is all I had. And I was like, no! And I was proper sad because I was like, I have no idea where they could possibly have gone, because after I took the photos, I put everything away. It then went in my stash box, cabinet thing. It then came back out in the bag, brought it out here, opened it all up. 3 of them have gone missing. Like, how the heck has that happened? Obviously, I've got them all, so no one needs to worry. I was really upset and obviously really gutted because I hadn't even shown them on the podcast yet, so I was going to have to come on here and go, hi Katie, I've lost all but one of them. So, cut to, if anyone watched Will and Grace and the Madonna episode, that's from there. Cut to me crawling on the floor on my hands and knees between this room and the room where I did my extra little segment last week, which is at the front of the house. Crawling on my hands and knees, wondering where I could possibly have dropped them or something. No luck, no luck. So I'm getting really upset, and just kind of going, you know what? I just need to video. I'm running out of time and I know what I go on like, so I don't want to lose the light, so I'm just going to have to go on. And then I had one of these cliche movie moments that I would not have believed actually happened in real life, except it genuinely happened to me. Hand on heart. Hand on stitch marker, hand on heart. I kind of went, right, okay, it's not going to happen. I went back in the front room to grab, I don't know what, something else anyway. As I just to pull some more stuff through. And I just had this little glint occur in the corner of my eye kind of thing, and it just caught my attention. I went, oh, that's shiny, what's that? And I think it's because I'd been in the hunting mode, because normally I wouldn't notice something like that, but because I was in hunt mode, I saw it and I just went, ooh, shiny metal. So I got down on the floor, and in my rug in the front room, I could just see this little lobster claw bit, and then as I got closer I could see it was the other one of these, and I was like, oh, yay! Cut to me ferreting around in the rug and then picking up the rug and carefully shaking it and then sticking it to one side and like sticking, have you ever done this trick where if that's the floor you stick your head right on the floor like that, close the other eye, and then you can see anything that's just slightly sticking up off the floor with this eye really stands out, because obviously it's really in profile according to your eye, so handy hint. If you ever lose something, that came from my mum. The other one my mum did when she lost needles was just to wipe her hand across the carpet and then pluck them out of the palm of her hand, because this woman had no pain receptors. She was badass, my mum. No, obviously she was just careful, but as a kid seeing that, you're like, holy cow! And yes, that was the censored version. And then I suddenly saw another glinty in the corner. I was like, oh, one of the normal stitch markers was there. And I was like, come on, 3 out of 4. I was padding around, digging through, moving everything that's on the floor. Because I was like, if I found 2 of them here, that means I've obviously done something where they've all dropped here. So I imagine I picked up the bag like that, and it was folded over, but there are gaps, like you saw the yarn come out of, and it was at an angle, and the stitch markers may have just dropped out of the bag that way. So I'm like going, come on, 3 out of 4, 3 out of 4, very, 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 number 4, boom! Oh my god, so relieved, so relieved. So now I'm keeping everything like that in my tin, because it's special, because it was handmade by my friend, and because it's quite small. And this is not so easily lost. Whereas my big herdy ones are quite chunky, which actually people have mentioned when they've talked about them on things like Instagram and stuff. You know, people say, oh, they're very difficult to knit with because they're chunky. I like them. They're great for chunky knits, and I like them because they're really obvious. But actually, yeah, I've used, for example, some of the other ones in here that I got with the tin from Alex is something, I can't pick that one up. Here we go. I'll try again, there we go. It's one of these, oh god, again, you're not going to be able to see it, are you? Just a second. It's one of these ones. I did have the camera closer last time, but I didn't like being right up in your face. Yes, it's teeny tiny, and that works great on sort of fingering weight yarn needles. And it's not overly huge, so I'm knitting the finger weight shawl. I'm using those size markers where necessary. And obviously, I still feel them coming, so it's not like I missed them or anything. But I quite like the herdy ones anyway, because I love the herdy sheep, so I'm just going to use them anyway. And I've still got them up on here. Look, I haven't been knitting at all, have I, on this thing? Still got them up on here. Oh, dearie me. So yes, I managed to find the stitch markers that she got me. Oops. Yes, I thought that was a bit odd. It's because I'm about to start doing unintended short rows and knit the wrong way. If you finish halfway through a row, guys, your yarn should be coming from the right hand side of the knitting when you pick it back up. Okay. Obviously, if you're knitting flat and you're at the start of a row, then that might not be the case. But if you're at the start of the row, you should obviously be paying attention as to where you are in the knitting anyway. In fact, if you're at the start of a row knitting flat, then when you turn the work, it would have to be on the left needle, wouldn't it? Because you've got nothing on the right, so yeah. Okay, so breathe after that epic little story. And yes, the last part of Carty's gift, which I've saved till last because it's a little bit of a separate section. He didn't immediately want to go back out, did he? But he does want to go back out. You see, this whole kind of looking up and knitting thing, I just haven't got the hours and hours and hours and years of experience. I've actually only been knitting. I relearned to knit a few years ago, like 3, maybe 4 years max. But then I didn't knit for about 2 years of that. So it's only this year, since, what, August or something? July? No, because I went to thingy in June. So beginning of the summer, I started knitting again properly. So I've only been knitting properly for, say, 6 months max, and like intensively. And off you go, Raw. I have to get raw out but keep stitching. It's very tricky. And only continental for maybe 6 weeks or something. Off he goes on his little trundle. He's been spotted now, because we always take him out the back of the house, but he's been spotted by my other half coming home out the front of the house. So he does go through the neighbour's garden out the front, we know now, which is where the road is. So I was just like, oh god. But because I know he's been doing it without me knowing, then I kind of think, well, he must be okay, he must have kind of been learning. And he's quite a sensible cat in that he's quite shy of new things, so fingers crossed he's not going to go and get himself run over. I mean, we're quite residential right where we are, but it's not far to the main residential road. And given cats can wander quite far, I don't know. But the other cat that kind of has chased him off a few times was always from that direction, which is where the main road would be. So I'm hoping he kind of stays in this area and close to the house roughly, and then that'd be fine because there aren't any busy roads in that area. And they should all be 30 miles an hour, but of course you do get the odd dB. And if you don't know what that is, I'm not going to tell you. Just assume it's pejorative. It's not a compliment. Who decide that residential streets totally warrant going zoom down, but fortunately they tend to be the same kind of people that make a lot of noise, so hopefully that will scare Raw and keep him away from them. So I was in the middle of talking about the last gift that I got from Carty, and that is, I'm just going to put my name down again. I've done a few. Look, I did a few more stitches. That is a book. Some might say the book. When I showed this on Instagram, I got a lot of comments kind of going, oh my gosh, that is the Knitting Bible. It is Knitting Without Tears by Elizabeth Zimmerman. Now, Elizabeth Zimmerman I have heard of, EZ. She is pretty big news in the knitting world. Unfortunately no longer with us. It says on the back 1910 to 1999. So I kind of missed with the whole... I didn't really get into knitting till after she was no longer with us. But I have been sitting and reading this. Now originally I said I'm going to knit it slowly and savour it. And I did. For the first chapter I really took my time. The Opinionated Knitter. Because it's very much about her saying what she thinks is best. And even if that doesn't agree with sort of, what would you call it? Common wisdom kind of thing. Now there's some stuff that obviously, this is Elizabeth Zimmerman speaking, so when she said I think this is best, fast forward, and I think this was first published in 1971. So this is actually very similar in time to the Manly Knits book I showed you before, originally from 1972 and then reprinted in 1995. But obviously because EZ said this is how things should be, quite a few of the things are now the norm. So there's quite a few things where it's like, oh right, well I'm already doing that, that's fine. But she talks about stuff that I sort of only just started hearing about or what have you recently, and she's like, yeah, so it's that kind of thing of, you know what, there's nothing new in knitting, it's just stuff that you haven't heard of yet. But she does a really cool cast off, a variant of which is used in this, and it is amazing cast off. Yeah, so Elizabeth Zimmerman's is for, I think, stockinette, and then the variant is for ribbing. Holy moly. Sewn, bind off. Amazing. Amazing. I'm not going to tell you which sewn bind off is in this pattern, because it's a paid for pattern. But I'll tell you that there is an amazing sewn off binding in it somewhere. I think that's okay, right? I hope that's okay, Kai. And there's all kinds of tips and tricks for casting on and casting off, and how to make your casting off look better in kind of more traditional patterns where they weren't so fussed with some of that stuff and it was just about making a garment that was functional. Everything you could ever possibly want to know. So this first chapter is like Beginner's Guide to Knitting on Acid. The book actually says it assumes you've got some of the basics already, but that really just means that you're not going to be scared. If you're a beginner who's not scared, then get this book, because it goes over everything, and that's fine. It just doesn't, she doesn't necessarily hold your hand. It's quite text heavy, but there are pictures all over the place. So for example, there's one of her picture type things. And she has this great kind of chatty writing style, which means it's like she's just sat with you chatting away, which some people have said about my podcast. So there you go. Very, very much in keeping with me. She also talks about cutting, knitting, which sounds terrifying, but she makes it sound so easy and so straightforward. Like her first pattern involves basically cutting 2 massive, great big slits in your knitting. I'm like, holy moly, woman, what are you doing? But like she says, basically, you do it, you go down, lie down in a dark room for 15 minutes, and then you'll never have a problem with doing it ever again. Like jumping at the deep end. She has a whole chapter, which is actually only 3 pages, dedicated to gauge, because gauge is actually what you need to know to get your knitting right. Everything else is commentary. And then she's got loads and loads of patterns and stuff, which again she has loads of comments through all of the patterns and what have you and stuff. And obviously this is from 1972, so the patterns are old. And they've been obviously massively copied, all of her techniques and stuff. But having said that, I haven't seen anything that uses what she calls the kangaroo pouch technique that's in here. Now there may be a reason for that. Probably because it involves cutting. And people are just too scared to do that. But I quite like the idea. The thing I found is it seems to be that you do what's called basting, which as far as I can tell is you use a sewing machine with a really small stitch either side of where you're going to cut to just sew it in place, and then you pick up outside of the sewing so that the sewing's hidden inside the garment. So you do that all very close up to each other so you don't have lots of seam. But yeah, so that's kind of cool. And then there's modular stuff. So there's jumpers, 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 and then some accessories and what have you. There's even a bit on brioche, and I was like, oh, I've already done brioche now when I read this. Because basically I read the first 2 chapters really slowly and then zoomed through the rest of it. Basically because the opinionated knitter, which is the first chapter, is the bulk, as I see it. That's about 40 odd, that's 46 pages. Then you've got the bit on gauge, which is just to stress that gauge really is the only thing you need to know about. Gauge, 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 gauge. Yeah? Then there's a bunch of patterns, which is, what, about another... well, technically it's about another 60 pages, 30 of which are various sweaters, and then another 30 of which are the other bits and pieces that she talks about. And then there's a bit on how to wash sweaters, which is really interesting actually, because she talks about folding up ribbed edges, so on sleeves and sweater bottoms, when you lay them flat to dry after getting as much moisture out as you possibly can. And I love some of the descriptions she's used for how to do it. And I'm thinking a salad spinner sounds like a really damn good idea for that. She seems to have a mechanism that works, and Jinx Yarns, Laura from Jinx Yarns, she talked about basically having sort of an industrial size salad spinner for her yarn. I've seen one in use in a sort of sauna area to get the water out of your whatever you've been wearing in the sauna kind of thing, which kind of makes sense. But I didn't think it made that much difference. I didn't think it was a very good one though, you know, it's like a little tatty old one in the corner of a gym. But she talks about washing, she talked about folding up the corners and stuff, things like that. But other than that, it's pretty straightforward. But yeah, so the biggest section on its own is this opinionated knitter, and that's the one that's really worth kind of going over, because she talks about pretty much everything that you need to know to do knitting, and she just is like, you know what, don't get stressed. She just de-stresses the whole thing. So I can see why like Kim from Come Knit With Us had sort of basically gone, oh my god, that book changed my knitting life. I can see why. It's an amazing book. So thank you, Carty, for that so much. Knitting Without Tears by Elizabeth Zimmerman. Big recommend, even though it's old. I would, and there's I've learnt loads. I've learnt loads, even though it's basic techniques. She covers such a breadth of stuff and is so permission giving in how to make it work and how to experiment with your knitting, how to make something that's not quite working for you work, and how to kind of get over some of the rules of knitting. She's just like, you know, and sometimes she can say that because, like for some of the colour work stuff she mentions in here, she changes the rules a bit for one of her things, and she says why, and she goes into the thinking behind it and the history behind it, and she explains why, and it's like, oh my gosh, that is so clever. She knows her stuff is so obvious. I mean, I am a newbie, so yes, I'm kind of blown away by Elizabeth Zimmerman, and yes, this is the first time I've sort of read a book by her, and I know that she has some kids, I think, that still do knitting stuff. But yeah, I am a total, you know, that's how much of a noob I am to knitting, really. This is my first Elizabeth Zimmerman thing, and I love it. So thank you very much, Carty, for all of those wonderful, wonderful, wonderful things. And I'm trying really hard not to have another episode where I eat on the podcast. I'm just going to move the sweets away from me, because they're calling me. Okay, that is all of my stash. And a little book review. So let's see if I had anything else left, because it's probably into the kind of community rambly stuff now. So, one thing, badges. Ugh. The short version is the person that I paid to make my badges then decided to go on holiday for like a month. This is my not impressed face. So today is the day that eBay requires I have to wait for until I can complain and try and get my money back. Basically, I had to message them and then wait 8 days to get a reply. So I'll go back on eBay after this afternoon, and I will check to see if they have responded whilst they're on holiday. Now, it could be they had a sudden family emergency or what have you, and that's fine. But the timing of it was really, really bad, because I bought it, heard nothing from them, checked a few days later, now they're on holiday, now they're on leave, kind of thing. The shop is closed, effectively. So it's like, well, you've not even responded to the people who have bought stuff from you to say, you know, really, really sorry we're having to go on holiday, or something's come up, or whatever. I've heard nothing. They've just taken my money. So I am kind of nonplussed for that. So I'm going to see about getting my money back from eBay, through eBay. And then maybe buying it elsewhere, which isn't great, because actually these guys are UK based and they're really good price. But it means if I do decide that I do want them to still do it, I'm going to have to wait till probably mid-December before I get them. Hey. So the badges are still happening. And this is particularly for Crystal, who, bless her, sent me a message going, "Oh my god, badges!" Basically. Which I can understand, because I am a lover of badges as well, and I'm super, super excited. When Ellie suggested I make them, I was like, "Oh my god, badges!" So you and me, Crystal, you and me. She's definitely getting one. But yeah, so I need to sort it. There's going to be a delay on that, just because of that faff. And whatever happens, there's going to be a delay now, because even if I decide I'm going to buy them for someone else, I didn't find anyone else that was UK based, which means it's international shipping. Anyway, so if you have recommendations for badges, hit me up. And I'm going to have a hunt around again. I did have a quick look around and saw some that I could get for like 25 quid or something, which is a bit more, it's about £10 more than I was going to pay. But I'm like, that's fine, you know. It's not a huge chunk of cash to be able to then give you guys a little something cool. So yeah, we'll see. But basically, the upshot, as I've said several times, is there's a delay. So move on. Ooh, the next one is the amazing Terry Schmidt. Hi, Terry! You get to squeal again, your name's being mentioned. Who launched his bagsbyterry.etsy.com, cunningly enough, bag shop, project bag shop, and they are amazing. They are amazing. He recently sent me an Instagram photo, direct message of the bag that he is making me. Oh, I'm going to be such a tease, but I am so excited. You will love it. You will love it. It is going to be absolutely amazing. When he first got in touch with me, he was like, I just want to know whether I can ship internationally or not. I don't know what it's going to be like to do it. Can I send you a bag? And I was like, hell yeah. And then I realised that he was really sucking at marketing, so I did the whole shout out thing, because I was like, his bags looked amazing that he showed me. Like, there were some photos on Instagram at the time when he talked about it. And it's like, these are really good. These look really, really cool. People are going to want these. And I was right. Everybody snatched them up. And he's had things like flash sales and stuff. So if you're not watching, he's got a Ravelry group, Bags by Terry, all one word, and an Etsy group, Etsy shop, Bags by Terry, all one word. So go and look at them. They are awesome. And I don't just say that because he's offered to send me a bag and is making me a bag that I really, really, really love. They genuinely do look really cool. And obviously when I get the bag, I'll be able to do a proper review. But other people have them in the US already that sort of bought from the shop with not local delivery, but internal delivery or whatever it is, US delivery. And they've all been saying lovely, lovely things on Instagram. And Crystal, again, has not been parted from her bag, which it does not surprise me because it's the amazing one with the crows on and the orange lining, and I'm jealous. But I'm getting an amazing bag. But anyway, the reason I mention it is because he's having a giveaway at the moment. Heck yes! And part of me is like, don't tell anyone, because that means I've got more of a chance of winning. But that's not the nice thing to do, and it's not the thing I would really do, is it now, you know. So he's having a giveaway on his Ravelry group, Bags by Terry, all one word, and it's Thanksgiving related, so you have to say something you're thankful for to be in with a chance of winning. Now, because he hasn't done international shipping yet, as far as I know, I don't know if he specified that it's US entries only or not. I didn't really look. I just entered anyway because I felt like writing in the forum about something I'm thankful for, which, if you want to know, was basically you guys. But go and check it out and see, and I'm sure Terry can clarify whether or not that'll work or whatever. I don't know, but he's obviously working on getting it, learning about it and getting it sorted. I think maybe it's just for the shop that he hasn't worked out what to charge and what's reasonable and how to say how long it'll take and all of that kind of thing for the shop. I imagine he can just post it internationally. Like, you know, it's not... I imagine he can just work that bit out. It's just he wants to be able to know what he's doing when he says it for the shop. ISU. So yes, project bag giveaway. Get in there, guys. Next thing, I talked a while ago, and I have been very slow in making this happen, apologies, about UK dyers and putting up some information about them all. Well, on the Ravelry homepage you may have seen, well, last week some point, Casey, who is the tech guy behind Ravelry, sort of promoting the bundle function within groups. And this is where you can put together a collection of things that exist on Ravelry. So in this case, I've done it for dyers. Now, I only did a few to start with because I haven't kind of sat and done the administrative work of digging through all of the UK dyers that I know about, finding them all on Ravelry, and not all of them are even on Ravelry. Why not? So I might have to do something separate or what have you for them. But basically, if if a UK diary is on Ravelry and you like them, anybody can add to this. So you can just go to my group, DancingGeek, all one word, space, podcast. And then on the front page of that, up in the top right corner, which for you guys will be, that's top right for you guys, right? Yeah. We'll say featured bundles. It's the bundles is the name of the particular part of the software. Or there's a bundles tab. But if you click on that and make your way to the UK Dyers bundle, it's got a little bit of blurb about how to add to it that I put in. I couldn't add photos for some reason. I haven't tried again since, so it probably works now. Fingers crossed. Casey's probably sorted it. But I just chucked in a few that I could think of off the top of my head. But it'd be great to have that as a little resource for all of our Norwegian friends who can't afford to import from America, and basically everyone else that can't afford to import from America. And just to celebrate all the people that I've been meeting at shows and stuff. So I will be doing that when I, probably after Christmas knitting is done and I stop freaking out so much about my knitting and I calm down, then I will feel like I've got time to just sit and do that. But until then, you guys are welcome to go and add stuff in. It's a little fiddly, so if you're not confident about doing it, you can message me. Somebody did message me one, and I've kind of got it sat in my inbox to do. So thank you. I can't remember who that was off the top of my head. I just remembered somebody did that. I may have put them in already, actually. I don't know. I may have gone, oh, I'll put them in whilst I'm thinking about it. But yeah, so if you don't want to put it in yourself, you can message me. But I will be working on putting that. But that now is featured on the front page of the group as well, which I quite like. Okay. The next thing I've written down is some new blogs. And all I've written down is a username. silly boy. So apologies. Oh no, that's why it's all her different names. It's one new blog, all her different names. Doink. So this is Kendra, who's out in Kansas. So her Ravelry name and possibly Instagram name, one or the other anyway. One of her names is Kendra KS for Kansas. Kendra KS. She has an Etsy shop, and I think her YouTube name is Cutesy Poo Creations, which is spelt C-U-T-E-S-Y, Cutesy, P-U for poo, Cutesy Poo with a U, Creations. And her podcast is called Such Nice Work. She's got episode 1 up at the moment, and she is amazing. She strikes me as a kind of a really no-nonsense person, and I just sat back and relaxed as she just started chatting, and I absolutely loved it. Really, really good fun. So she has shot straight up to the top of my must-watch list, with others of my favourites, such as Come Knit With Us and things like that. So please keep going, Kendra, because I really, really enjoyed that. There was another blog mention to make from last week, because when I was scrolling through all of my subscriptions, I missed a special mention one, because this is somebody who does a fair amount of vlogging, but hasn't done many knitting vlogs. So she's got 7 knitting vlogs up already, and this is Nicole, who is Nick Nacaroni, Nick Nacaroni. You're joining in, Nick Nacaroni. Come on, Kim, Nick Nacaroni. I know Sam's doing it. Kim's probably not even watching this because she's very, very busy at the moment. But I'm hoping Sam is, because Sam tends to watch me, don't you, Sam? You're watching, Sam. Love you guys. So yes, an extra shout out to Nick Nacaroni, who is Nick Nacaroni on YouTube and Instagram and Ravelry and everywhere else, because she is very clever and basically has her online name as a bit of an online brand, like me and DancingGeek, because quite frankly, if you have a different name in different locations, I don't know you're the same person. because it's a rare person who, like me, uses the same photo everywhere and the same name everywhere, because I like the fact that people can tell who I am and find me on places. But a lot of people use different names all over the place, and it confuses the heck out of me. So thank you, Nick Macaroni, for doing that as well. That's awesome. Okay, Chub Chub Chub. Oh, I've done those two because that was the Stitch Mark Saga from Carty's Parcel, and the Hunt for Cash Soft from my MCAL loss. I lost the yarn chicken again. But as I said earlier, I already have somebody who responded to me within 12 hours, basically, and have already done a swap with them with a pattern for a ball of wool. So sweet. So there's kind of one, maybe two. There's one thing that's kind of a side thing that I'm not sure about, but it's a little bit of a chit-chatty thing, so I'll do that last. So the first one is, actually I don't need to put this down. I could be knitting. I'm not knitting. I'll knit afterwards. The thing that I forgot to do, I mentioned last week that I was going to do something and I hadn't done the prep work for it. So I did the prep work this week. And I had to do a sit and think about this as well, which is why I couldn't just kind of make it up on the fly, as it were. Because what I wanted to do was do a big shout out for all you guys that have joined in on the group. And I was like, how do I do this? How do I best do a big kind of thank you shout out to all the people on the group? And I really wasn't sure. I looked. And I'm really... what's the word I'm looking for? Fortunate, I suppose, yes. I'm grateful, I'm fortunate to have as many people in my group as I do. But a random kind of just group member prize drawing felt a little bit weird. So I looked at things like who's posted the most, or who's in threads most recently, and I kind of piddled around with all of that, and then I was like, oh well, the most recent post is only the last 30 days, and oh well, you know, which threads do I choose from, and oh well, so I did a random draw. Basically. So I did a random number generator for all the people in the group, pulled up the relevant number, which was 215, which is Knitting Mummy of 6. And again, this is somebody whose name I recognise, which is lovely. She is Knitting Mummy on Instagram, and I've chatted a little bit with her on there. I sort of persuaded her to do the Sword of a Knitter MCAL and get her to join in, because she was a bit nervous of it for some reason. I'm not sure why, but I was like, no, come, join in, do it with us. And then here's me basically going, I think I'm going to have to put it down. Oh, that still makes me sad. I don't want to. I really don't want to. But I think I need to acknowledge that the reason I don't want to, it's not necessarily a very healthy reason. And I have some other knitting that I really do want to get done, and I'm going to get very upset if I don't have a little bit of discipline. It's not a bad thing. But yes, and Knitting Mummy is also a Buffy fan. Buffy is basically my age, as in the character was born the same year I was. Now, it was a little bit delayed coming over to the UK, so it always seemed like she was a year younger than me when I was watching. But then, spoiler alert, you get to see her gravestone, and I think the year she was born was which is 1981. So yeah, now you know how old I am, which I'm not, ashamed of, so I don't mind. Yeah, so for me, Buffy was somebody I grew up with, and as I was going through all my teenagey stuff, she was going through all her teenagey stuff. And they had lesbian characters, and feminist sort of not feminist storylines, just women as people. You know, to use the George R.R. Martin quote of, you know, oh, how do you write such good women characters? And he goes, well, I start by thinking of them as people. You know, which is basically what feminism is about, guys. You know, it's not exactly earth-shattering. Yeah, so I just really loved Buffy, and I thought all the male characters were super cute and had a massive crush on them all. And this is before I worked out what that actually meant for me. I was undecided for very many years because I didn't really know, and I wasn't in a particularly supportive environment to work it out. Yeah. Where is this going? Oh yeah, just my love of Buffy, generally. So I love Buffy! Buffy's amazing! And I bought all the VHS stuff, and then I bought the collector's edition DVDs and gave away all the VHS because we don't have a tape player anymore. We got rid of all of them. And the DVD collection comes in one box that's about the width of, say, 6 or 7 DVD cases, because they come in micro cases stacked up. So you get a whole 7 series of TV in the size of about 6 cases of DVD cases. So it's super compact, which I love, because I like having the whole collection, but I don't like having it take up a huge amount of space. So yeah, I'm a massive Buffy fan. There we go. That's just my thing. Just a little connection there with Knitting Mummy. And originally when I was thinking about this, I was just going to say, you win $10 a patent on Ravelry, and just kind of not bother faffing around with all the prizes. But I'll say this much: if you saw something last week that you really want, then let me know and you can have it. But otherwise, I'm just going to go, I'm not going to show them all again and go through all of that. I'm just going to say the prize is $10 of patterns on Ravelry. Obviously you have to be giftable on Ravelry. As many patterns as you like, up to the value of $10 total, US. You can pick British ones that sum up to the relevant total, or euros or Canadian dollars or what have you. Just work out what the relevant total is and I'll buy them for you. GB and US is easy because I have PayPal for both of those currencies. Yeah, so that was it. That was just a little thank you for people who are joining in on the forums and stuff. So that was more of a for being in the group one. I do want to do a for actually joining in on the forums one as well, and I'm not quite sure how that's going to work out. So if you guys have a good idea for that, let me know. I suppose there are some things I can think of, like first dibs on badges and stuff like that. But my plan is to make sure that everyone that wants one gets a badge. So maybe it's just if the first lot of badges goes really quickly for some bizarre reason, then I would make sure that guys who have participated in the forums get one first or something like that. Who knows? But yeah, I may yet do something like the top 5 commenters of all time or something. I don't know. But yeah, and yeah, I want to do something. I've done the others as surprises, and I've kind of let the cat out of the bag with that one. But so I'll try and think of something a bit random for that. But sorry, my hair is doing my nut in today. As I said, I jumped out of bed and ran down to record this. So there you go. I like to have a little bit poking out so that I don't. I think it looks better, basically. Yeah. There we go. Tidied up. I feel a bit better now. It's starting to do that thing where it kind of falls down here and gets my eyes. And I could have waited because I think that's it. I didn't have to sort my hair and fiddle around on camera because I think that's everything I've got down for this week. And it is starting to go. The light is starting to leave me at, yeah, it's 3:30, so the sun is starting to set. But yeah, so I'm going to go and check to see if the lady got in the afternoon post, and then I'm going to go and reply to everybody, or write to everybody that I've written to already, to kind of go, thank you very much for people that replied and all of that, to let people know I don't need any now. Fingers crossed, and just one more skein will be enough, and that he hasn't lied on the yardage. It's like masses. But I suspect I'll only need a little bit more. I think it's just my gauge is a bit looser on that pattern. So yeah, one last look at the volumizer. So pretty! In fact, let's do, because I think this is quite nice for showing off yarn. It's so tight though that I'm not going to be able to get it back up, done up this tight, but let's finish with some pretty. I love how they've got the tags kind of fitted in around the skein as well. You see what I mean? Like that. They've kind of got those paper tags like you would have stuck in a ball, but they've stuck them in the skein with this little twist, which is quite cool. But that's what it looks like untwisted in the skein. So it looks like it's going to be a sort of a gradient yarn between those three main colours of sort of red, yellow and black. It's kind of flaming colours. You trying to say something, Carty? I'm flaming! I'm flaming awesome, that's what I am! But yeah, so isn't that pretty? That looks so cool! But I'm not going to get as tight a wind back up on it, but that's fine. It doesn't need to be. In fact, I think a looser one's probably a good idea actually. Being tight with your yarn can stretch it out, which maybe isn't a great idea, because then you wash it and it goes, and that's not something you want. The instructions on the inside of the label are in English. How odd. Oh, last minute little hello from Stitch. You come for some cuddles? Oh, that's so sweet. Let's have a little hello. Say hello to camera just so the guys have seen you. Bye bye from Stitch. He's so not interested. Right, I'm going to try something fancy. I'm going to try turning it off with the remote control. Love you guys. Bye.